Hello BookTube. This is library donation box number 2. To recap, I'm doing a series of unhaul videos. Over the past few months, I have been thinking about weeding out some of the books from my collection that I'm just not interested in keeping anymore. I've been waffling back and forth over how exactly I should dispose of the books, whether donate or try to trade in or to gift. And I've settled, I think, for the most part, on just donating them to a local friends at the library. And they will either, once they accept the books, either put some of them in their collection or put them in the book sale, which will happen in the beginning of November. Although they did used to do a strictly fiction sale sometime in June, but I don't know if they still do that or not. I haven't really paid too much attention to my local library since the pandemic, since I pretty much have switched to just reading the books that I buy. But anyway, this is a second packed box of books. This box is exclusively science fiction and fantasy because they're kind of the easiest to have at in my room. My classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama are in the hall. Although the next box 3, will have some classics and canonical work in there, and also literary fiction and poetry in there too. So anyway, let's get going with the box at hand, shall we? Okay. So first up is The Traitor Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. This is the first volume in a trilogy, I think it's a trilogy, about a woman named Cormorant whose people were colonized by this empire that presents itself as bringing nothing but benefits. And for the most part, they do improve the lives of the people they conquer or colonize. But where this empire is most egregiously evil is that they are deeply, deeply homophobic, psychotically homophobic. And this homophobia leads Cormorant on a number of fronts to want to bring down the empire from the inside. Her family were initially polyamorous. She had 2 fathers and 1 mother, and one of her fathers was murdered by the empire. And Cormorant herself is a lesbian. And so she tries to worm her way ever deeper into the highest echelons of power in this empire. And this book sees her, when she's graduated from finished off her education, she's sent to be a financial controller of a newly conquered territory that is in some rebellion. And she manipulates the rebels for her own ends. I really did not like this book. I never quite bought Cormorant, in part because she was too young for the position she was given. She should have been older. Although maybe her age might not have been as... I don't know, I've always had the suspicion that there's some intended titillation with this book. I mean, I could be wrong, but I've always had that concern. And it's definitely one of the reasons why I was put off it, but I didn't like it. So I've had it for far too long, and it's well past time I send it on its way. So hopefully a better home that will enjoy it far more than I did. Another book that I've had for a long time that I really didn't like is Amberlough by Lara Elena Donnelly. This is basically a novel set in an alternate, well, it's very heavily inspired by Weimar Germany, even though with none of the kind of events that led up to Weimar Germany. Anyway, it's about a agent who has been tasked with investigating a drug smuggling operation that is headed by a man who moonlights as a singer at a cabaret. The two eventually become lovers, which leads to a bit of a knowing cat and mouse game between the two. The other main character is a singer or another performer at this cabaret, and in the background, there's this fascistic political party that's rising in influence. The agent is sent to sort of squash their operations in one of the constituent states of this country. He's exposed and is forced to turn double agent, and eventually this fascistic party does take power at the end, and many of the cast members flee to another country. I didn't like this book. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like that plot turn. There's so much holding of the idiot ball that I don't know which one's holding the bigger idiot ball. It's just, I never liked it. I didn't like it. So, well past time I send it on its way. Next is Middlegame by Seanan McGuire. This is a contemporary fantasy set in a world in which alchemy is real, and it's basically about an alchemist who's trying to become God. And he does this by creating pairs of polar opposite twins. So the main characters, Roger and Dodger, represent pure linguistics and pure mathematics. And together they can kind of alter reality. And it never really did anything for me. I really wasn't impressed with this book, so sending on its way. Next is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book of the First Law trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. This is one of the seminal works of Grimdark, and I didn't make it past the first chapter. I did not like this at all. And I don't quite know why I bought it, because I actually checked it out from the library first. But again, I did have a period where I saw my collection as exclusively science fiction and fantasy, and that I should collect a number of works that were likely to be future classics, even if I necessarily did not like them. Although there was always the hope, I guess, that I would eventually come to like them. But I've had that book for 5 or 6 years now, and I haven't really touched it except to library tour it. It needs to go. The next 3 books are all by Brandon Sanderson, or the next few. First up is Mistborn. This is the first volume in his most famous series. I've had this for a number of years, but I really don't like his work, and I'll explain a bit about that in a second. But so I really have no interest in having a go at this book. So the next 2 books are the first 2 volumes in the Stormlight Archive, The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. So I've tried The Way of Kings twice. Once when I checked it out from the library, and second in this edition. I did not get into it either time. I bailed really quickly. It just, the writing, nothing did anything for me, and they're too bloated. I mean, they are bloated. And I really haven't gotten on with anything that I've read by Sanderson, so it's well past time I send these books to a better home. The next 3 books are a bit of a, what was I thinking when I bought these? They are the first 3 books in the Tensor series by J.Y. Yang, although they're now going by Neon Yang. But I picked these up before the name change. So this is the Black Tides of Heaven, and the Red Threads of Fortune, and the Descent of Monsters. So the Tensor series is about a land ruled by an emperor figure called the Protector. She, in thanks for aid given by a monastery, allows the abbot to adopt her youngest children, who are twins. So the twins are pretty much raised in this sort of in a dissident environment until they are forced to return to their mother's care after the eventual twin sister reveals prophetic powers. So one of the aspects of the world building in this book is that at least the elite, at least the Tensors, the people with magical powers, are born agender. Basically, they don't have a gender until puberty, when they choose a gender and transition magically into which gender they choose. I don't think that applies to the bulk of the population, but I could be wrong. And that might be explained in either The Descent of Monsters or a later book. But the first 2 books, I don't think it's ever truly really explained. I think it's, at least I got the impression, it's really the Tensors who do that. But anyway, so I read the first 2 shortly after they came out from the library and didn't like them. But for whatever reason, I ended up buying these 3 at the end of 2017. And I did, if I remember, I think I did have another go at Black Tides of Heaven, but did not get on with it then either. So they've been languishing in my on my shelves for years now, and it's well past time again that they are sent to hopefully a better home. Next is Sins of Empire by Brian McClellan. This is book 1 of the Gods of Blood and Power series. It's the sequel to the Powder Mage series. It's okay. It's okay. It's nothing really to write home about. It's really not that spectacular. I have had zero inclination to ever come back to it. So, well past time it goes. The next batch of books are pretty much either complete trilogy or in the first 5 books in a very long series. So let's go with the trilogy first, because I think with these books I'm going to put them back in here. So this is a trilogy by Mark T. Barnes. I'm not entirely sure what the correct order of the series is, so I'm just going to show them willy-nilly. So this is the Obsidian Heart, the Garden of Stones, and the Pillars of Sand. So I was put on these books by a booktuber who no longer produces videos. He was I think he was a German booktuber who primarily focused on science fiction and fantasy. And he raved about them, and so I picked them up. But I did not like the first one, or at least I think it was the first one. I can never tell. And I really didn't like it. So, yeah, they've been languishing on my shelves ever since. And it's time they hopefully find a new home. And the last 5. Okay. So I have the first 5 volumes of the Shadows of the Apt series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is volume 1, Empire in Black and Gold. Volume 2 is Dragonfly Falling. Volume 3 is Blood of the Mantis. Volume 4 is Salute the Dark. And volume 5 is The Scarab Path. I'm going to put all but the first one back in here. There we go. So I had long wanted to read the Shadows of the Apt series. The idea that the humans in this setting are inspired by insects, that the ethnic groups of the humans in the setting are inspired by insects and arachnids, was very interesting. I was less enthused about the split between sort of some of these kindred peoples having magic and others not. And so the series on the whole is about the Wasp Empire trying to conquer the rest of the world. I picked this up from Hastings, which was an entertainment store chain that closed down in mid-2016. And then I picked the other 4 books up the next year or two. And then I finally got around to reading Empire in Black and Gold, and I didn't like it. So yeah, it's been languishing on my shelves ever since, and it's time it finds a new home, hopefully. So that was box 2 of my library donation unhaul. I will be back tomorrow with box 3 once I decide what books are going to go into that one. And yeah. And then if I have time, I might, well, I think what I'll do is I'll do the quarter book tag Friday. Yeah, that's what I'll do then. So anyway, book 2, that's all I got for today. So until I see you tomorrow, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.